Chef Caleb Jang is the co-owner, operator, executive chef of Magpie and the Tiger, a cozy Korean-American restaurant located in Petworth, DC, serving food, no ABV cocktails, and more. Chef Roren Choi is co-owner, operator of Magpie and the Tiger, and is Chef Caleb's wife. Over to you, Caleb and Roren.
Hi guys. So today we are going to be featuring two Korean dishes that we grew up eating and sort of feature a lot of different plants that we use every day in Korean cooking. So I'm going to start off with a drink. It is a malted barley and sweet rice drink. It is cool and refreshing, and I'd like to just get started. So what you start out with is you'd have to find some malted barley. So I'm going to put that up to the screen. It kind of looks like this. You can find it at any Asian grocery store, and you could probably find it at maybe some specialty new organic grocery stores, and I believe some beer purveyors or stores also have malted barley. But this is going to be a part of the fermentation process that happens when we make our shikhye. So shikhye is a rice drink that typically is had at the end of meals. So what I am doing right now is taking the malted barley and then putting it into some warm water. And then what we're doing is just mixing it together, and then the malted barley is going to just infuse into the water, sort of making like a tea. And then so I'm showing you a very quick process of this right now. But what we're going to do is you will have to massage this barley every 20 minutes for about an hour. And then after you do that, you will strain it. And then once you strain it, you'll have to let that sit and let all of the sort of sediment settle to the bottom. So right now you can see it's pretty cloudy, and then you have to let it sit for about an hour to let all the sediment settle to the bottom. So right now, let's just pretend that that's what happened right here. And then the next thing you're going to have to do is, you have to cook a little bit of rice. That's a part of this drink. It's rice and malted barley drink. After this malted barley settles to the bottom, you're gonna want to pour it over the cooked rice that you have, and just make sure that the sediment at the bottom doesn't get into this rice. And what you want to do is let the malted barley water completely cover the rice grains. And then I guess I'll tilt this up to you guys. Oh, maybe not. I'll take it out. And you'll have the malted barley down here covering your rice. And you'll put it in your machine and just let it sit on the warm setting. And so the malted barley is like previously fermented. It's like a sprouted grain. And then using the warm water with the tea and then putting it into the warm rice setting is going to set off like a slight fermentation process. And what that does is just provide that flavor that comes with this sweetened rice drink. If you didn't do any of this and just try to sort of mix it all together, it wouldn't taste very complex. It just kind of tastes like wheat, and that's not very good. So after we do that, we're going to set this on the warm setting for about 3 hours. And then after that happens, you'll have to periodically take a look inside of your rice cooker, or you could also use a crock pot on the low setting, on the warm setting, if you don't have a rice cooker. So you'll just have to look inside and you'll start to see the grains of rice starting to float. And once you have about 10 or so of those floating, you're done. And then after you are done with that, you'll take out your rice and then you'll strain the liquid out, but don't throw it away because that's essentially your drink. And then, but you'll keep the rice granules that are in here because that is also a part of your drink as well. And since it's warm, you want to cool it down completely. And then after you have that, you'll want to take the liquid that you have and then add some sugar to it. And then you add the sugar and then you place it on your stove and let it sit for and just boil for about 10 minutes. And you can adjust the amount of sugar based on how sweet you like drinks. But for our recipe, we use about 1/4 of a cup for 4 cups of water. And then after you do all of that, let it cool all the way, and you're left with this delicious rice beverage, and then the rice that you saved. And then we could just make our drink. So it's really tastes delicious if you have it super ice cold. So we add a little bit of ice, and then we add our malted barley and rice drink that's been sweetened with a little bit of sugar. And then we'll just add a little bit of the rice at the very top. And it's so you'll see it's just this sweetened rice drink, and then the rice granules will sort of float in the drink as you drink it, and it's a super delicious and refreshing drink for the summer. So the next thing we're going to move on to is our hwae-dup-babp, and hwae-dup-babp is a sort of a bibimbap, but instead of the typical toppings of like a bulgogi or a fried egg, we'll be using cured fish. So this is a fish version of a bibimbap.
So Chef Caleb, before we move on to the next recipe, we have a few questions for you about the beverage. Can you tell us a little bit about what kinds of situations or time of day this beverage is typically served?
So as for Roren and I, like our experience has been very, like we would normally have them at the end of meals. So at certain Korean barbecue restaurants, or just Korean restaurants in general, they might serve it at the end of the meal when you get your check. In like home settings, we would have them sort of in the summer when it's hot outside, just to have like something super cold and refreshing. And yeah, it's not typically served during breakfast, I would say, but it's more of like a midday and dinner drink.
Gotcha. Once you've made your delicious beverage, how long does it keep in the fridge?
Yeah, so after you make your drink, I would say just keep it in the fridge for up to a week. But hopefully it'll be so delicious that you don't need to do that.
Amazing. It certainly looks like it would be that delicious. Great. Thanks so much.
Right. So the first thing we're going to do is sort your drink. Yeah. So Roren is going to show us how to do that.
Yeah, so again, hwae-dup-babp is just sort of like our summer refreshing, but it'll still fill you up, which is great, dish. And we grew up eating it. Both of our moms made it. You know, it was something that if we went to like church gatherings or something like that, it was something that was very easy to throw together, but super delicious all at the same time. So we have our little twists on it. So one of the things that we like to do is put a soy cured egg yolk on it. So this is something you want to do a couple hours before. It's very easy. It'll take like 5 seconds, you'll see. So what you're going to go ahead and do is take a little bit of soy sauce and just put it in a bowl or a little container. And you're not too worried about making the, egg yolk be totally covered. You're gonna go ahead and separate your egg yolk. So lovely little egg yolk right here. And you're just gonna plop that little guy right inside the soy right there. So again, see, it's well, it's not totally covered, and that's absolutely fine. You're just gonna leave that little guy in there for about 3 hours. The sweet spot is kind of 5. And what you're looking for is for the soy to, again, cure the egg yolk, and it's going to turn into almost like a jammy texture. And that's just something to add a little bit of more flavor and, again, texture to the rice. I'll put that aside. And then Caleb is going to go ahead and show you kind of how we cure our fish and then how to cut the fish.
Okay, so this is the most important part of our hwae-dup-babp. The hwae in hwae-dup-babp means fish, and I will show you how we do that. So today we're going to be using salmon. It's Atlantic salmon that we get from our seafood purveyors. But if you are looking for a salmon that is of high quality, I would suggest going to a fish market. We have a great fish market on the wharf that has fresh seafood all the time, and they would be able to show you really high quality fish. If salmon's not your jam, you can use tuna or snapper or any other fish that you might see in sushi preparation. But today we really like this salmon. If you can't get to the wharf, I suggest going to more of a high-end grocery store. They tend to carry higher quality fish. And then, so for us, what we typically like to do when we get our fish is after we cut and butcher the fish, and you could have your purveyor cut this for you if butchering isn't something that you feel particularly good at doing yourself, and let's just be all true to ourselves and find experts to do it for us if we can't do it ourselves. So right now it's fresh, but there's always a risk of any foodborne illness when we consume this raw fish, and something to mitigate that at our restaurant, and just sort of a chef's trick, is to use a cure. So what we're going to do is cure this salmon with a salt and sugar cure. So it is a 2-to-1 ratio, 2 parts of salt to 1 part of sugar. And it's literally as easy as putting both of those ingredients together and giving it a nice big shake, and then getting everything combined together. So this piece of fish has already been cured, but you would want to sprinkle this cure sort of liberally all over the fish, and then once that is on the fish, you want to refrigerate it and let that cure sit for about 30 minutes to an hour. If you go any further than that, it starts to become sort of like cured fish that you would see on like lox sandwiches or bagels. So you don't want to have that texture, which is delicious on its own, but it's not really what we're going for here. Just a light cure to sort of sanitize and cleanse any sort of things that might be lingering on the fish, just to eliminate any of that risk. So yeah, so that is the curing the fish process. And now we have our fish right here. It's beautiful, it's great, and I am going to show you guys how you would cut it for your fish for the hwae-dup-babp. So it really depends how much you would like, but typically you would want to have at least 4 ounces per person. And before I just go on and slice the fish without explaining anything, I'll explain what I'm doing. So if you see this band right here, it's a bloodline, and it's just a little bit more irony. It's not, it could get a little bitter, so we'd want to remove that. So take a sharp knife and sort of slide it right underneath the bloodline and try to get just that brown colored part of the fish, but leave that orange flesh intact. All right. And then once you do that, it's all clean, and then you'd want to cut it into your strips. So you can see right here, the fish has these lines going across this way, and if you've cooked steak before or any other protein, you might have heard that you'd want to cut against the grain of the meat, and it's no different when you're dealing with fish. If you cut along the grain this way, it could tend to be a little chewy, so you'd want to cut against the grain to just make it have like a really pleasant texture. So that's what I'm going to do right here. So I'm going to cut going this way. So I'm just cutting across the grain right here. And we'll get a couple of slices per person.
And as you can see, he's kind of using his entire knife, the long strips. So whenever you're cutting fish, especially when you're cutting raw fish, that's definitely what you want to do. The kind of back and forth motion, because the flesh is very tender, can tend to kind of rip, and we want those nice whole pieces. So you're going to go ahead and try to use all the way from the back end of your knife right here, and then just pull really slowly and really let the knife do all of the work. You're just kind of guiding the knife along the way.
Thank you. And for curing the fish, we think we heard you say 30 minutes to an hour, but it looked like the recipe said 3 hours. So we just want to clarify and make sure we're all doing the right thing.
Yes. I would say do 30 minutes to an hour.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. And while I'm asking about the curing process, I'll check in. Do you generally cover the fish before refrigerating?
Yes. So if you left the fish uncovered, just the air in the refrigerator might dry it out. So
Got it.
cover it with plastic wrap.
And then our inquiring viewers or attendees want to see a close-up of one of the fish slices. If you can hold it closer to the camera for us, that would be wonderful. I understand it might be a little difficult with the tender fish, but
Okay, I'll try to do it like a little mukbang.
The influencer thing.
yeah, beautiful. Thank you.
We're cutting straight across. If you cut it the other way, you would just see like more of a white streak.
Yeah. So while Caleb is finishing that up, we're going to move on to the sauce. So chogochujang it's a two-part word. So cho means vinegar, gochujang means our beloved fermented chili paste, which you can see here. It's ubiquitous in Korean cooking. And the base of it is just very, very simple. It's just something nice and bright, a little bit sweet, a little bit savory. It's got a little bit of spice, a little bit of a kick, just to kind of bring all of the ingredients together in the bowl. So we're gonna go ahead and I'm just gonna slide you on over just a touch. So you're gonna go ahead and get a nice clean bowl. You're gonna go ahead and grab. So this is again our gochujang. It helps if you have a cute spatula. And you're gonna go ahead and it's literally as simple as just mixing everything together. So that is going in. And Chef Caleb, if you could show them how to grate the garlic. So this is a microflame. If you don't have one at home, I highly suggest getting one. You can get it in any like online retailer or any kind of like specialty, or not even specialty, just any kind of kitchen store. It is such a great tool. We use it for so many different things, but one of our favorite things to use it for is garlic. So you're just gonna go ahead and just go back and forth with your peeled garlic peel. That little nubbin that you see up on the top, that's the root piece. That's not good eats, so you're gonna try to use that as like your hold, and then once you get there, you can go ahead and discard. But this just gives it a lovely texture. It releases the allicin, it releases all the things that are gonna give you all that lovely flavor. It also kind of loosens everything up because the allicin has that property. So again, you can see the texture right there, nice and grated up, lovely. And then you're actually going to do the same with the Asian pear. So we've already had some grated right here. And again, you're just going to add that in. And when you do grate that, there's going to be a lot of juice that comes out. You want to reserve that. That's going to add even more flavor and deliciousness. Here we have our rice wine vinegar. There we go. And you're going to add that in as well. A little bit of sugar. And a little bit of toasted sesame seeds. All right, in the bowl. Grab yourself a whisk. And really what you're looking for here is you're just trying to make sure that all that sugar is nice and incorporated in, nice and melted all in there. I'm just going to go ahead and mix it up.
So if you are wondering what Asian pear is, if you don't know what it is, it's just it looks like a yellow apple, and it's just different from a regular pear. If you wanted to or were tempted to sub it out for regular pear, I would highly discourage it because it's completely different in texture and flavor. And then this again, you can. I've seen them in regular grocery stores before, but your best bet is to go to an Asian grocery store, and they're all over the place, so you'll be able to find that there.
And then Caleb is going to show you how to cut our mori. And then after that, we assemble.
Okay, so this is just our garnish. We are just using some sushi nori, and this you can find anywhere, and it's very typical for in Korean cuisine to use scissors a lot, and we're no different. We're going to use scissors too, so I just cut it in half, and then we're just going to cut that into quarters, and then simply just cut that into strips and just put it in your collection bowl of your choice. And like I've tried doing this with my knife because I wanted to be very chefy about it, and it's actually a lot harder. So I stopped doing it. And this is like this is the way that my mom would do it, and she would tell me that she told me so, and I should have listened to her in the first place.
Alrighty, so now it's my favorite part. So we're gonna go ahead and assemble. So all I've done is taken the rice. It's just your run-of-the-mill regular sushi rice. Like, yeah, there we go. So we've cooked this off earlier. It doesn't have to be cold. It can definitely be warm. So you can take it right out of your rice cooker or your pot, however you are cooking it. So you're gonna go ahead and start to assemble. So we have our lovely julienne vegetables here. We have our red onion. We have our cucumbers, and we have our carrots. One, again, little chef trick that we like to do. Sometimes the red onions, especially in this country, can be very potent, really powerful. And so in some instances, that's great, but there's a lot of delicate flavors going on here, and we just kind of want everything to like meld together in like a lovely melody. And so what you want to do is after you cut it, you're actually going to just stick it in a little bit of cold water. You only need about 10 minutes, and then you can go ahead and strain out all of the onions. And it just takes that bite away, kind of that punch in the face onion flavor. We want all the kind of subtle, more subdued flavors, again, just to kind of like play nicely with everything else. And that's one of the restaurant tricks that we like to do. So again, all I'm doing is just making sure that they have their little place. So we got the purple, we got the green, we got the orange, lovely. And then over here we have something called wasabi cress. It's these little baby wasabi cress leaves. There we go. That's also gonna get another little spot right here. And truly, this isn't, a lot of times this is almost like a kitchen sink dish. Like whatever is in your fridge that's like fresh and just available. So spinach works in this case. Just kind of any leafy greens or any kind of vegetables that are delicious raw. Bell peppers, you can kind of really adjust it in however you feel like or whatever you have available in your fridge. So we have some beautiful lettuce here. And this is nothing fancy. You're just gonna go ahead and tear it with your hands. That's gonna give another little spot. Lovely, so right there. And then over here we have our little perilla leaves. So perilla is sesame leaves. And so we're just gonna do a little bit of snipping over here. Planted these last week. We love, so again, we'll just kind of do a little close up. And you'll see these in kind of all different sizes. These are kind of like baby sizes. Again, you can get this at pretty much any Asian grocery that's around. There's a couple around. And since they're so small, we're just gonna go ahead and keep them intact. But if they were a little bigger, feel free to like give them a little tear. So actually, we'll grab this little guy over here. And again, you don't have to use your knife, nothing fancy. Just go ahead and give it a small tear into little bite-sized pieces. All right, we'll give it a little sprinkle. We just cut our scallions just, right down. Give it a little sprinkle right there. So you're just looking at spring in a bowl, it's delicious and lovely. So we're gonna go ahead and top it with our fish. And right before we do that, actually, we will top it with our soy cured egg yolks. So remember this little guy right at the beginning. And one trick I like to do is whatever container that you have it in, because sometimes you can break the yolk, and we want to really keep it intact for presentation purposes. You're gonna tilt your bowl so that all the liquid is kind of going into one corner, and then you'll have much more room for your spoon to get underneath, so you can just lift it up like that. And then we'll put it right in the middle. You can get a little bit of that soy sauce, and that's all right. And then we'll go ahead with it. So this is what it looks like for right now. We'll go ahead and top it with our fish. Yum, yum, yum. So there we go. And then after this, it's just a garnish party. It's kind of whatever you want to do. The only two things that we highly, highly suggest to use is going to be sesame oil right here. If you do go to your local Asian grocery store, if you look hard enough, sometimes there are like they're a little more pricey, but I guarantee you just the flavor and just literally the flavor of the ones that are, kind of found in your regular grocery store versions, like the specialty stores, night and day, so different. So if that is viable for you, I would highly suggest that. So you're just gonna do a quick little drizzle all over. It is pretty potent, so you don't need a ton. So there we go. And then right here, we have a few garnishes. So we love our crispy garlic, which is over here, our crispy shallots over here, just to give it a little more texture. Sprinkle, sprinkle. The other one that I highly suggest is just to add more sesame seeds. And I just wanted to show you guys two different types that we have. So right here, we have our regular toasted sesame seed, which I'm sure everyone's familiar with. But over here, we have something called shikhye. So shikhye is our wild sesame seed. It's a little bit of a deeper flavor. You're getting a little bit more umami, I would say, than your like standard sesame seed. But if that's all you can find, totally fine. Again, you can find this at your local Asian grocery store. Very, very easy to find. So that's the one we're going to use today because that's my favorite. Right on top of the egg yolk. Right there. And then finally, The nori can go right on top of the yolk as well. And you have assembled your dish. So this is hwae-dup-babp. And then for your sauce, you just take your sauce and drizzle as much as you like. And this is all to taste. So all over. And then you're just gonna mix everything together and go ahead and enjoy. So that is hwae-dup-babp and shikhye.
That is so beautiful. My goodness. We have lots of questions for you. So first about Perilla. Can you tell us a little bit about what that tastes like? And is there a purple Perilla? And do you ever use that instead?
So purple Perilla might be confused for shiso, and shiso is a Japanese plant and herb that looks very similar. I would say that there are similarities between one and the other, except shiso has much more like anise flavors, and I wouldn't describe or sub it one to one. They have very different flavors. So sesame has a bit more of like a stronger punch to it, and then shiso is a little bit more delicate and has a little bit more of that anise, like licoricey flavor that I mentioned before.
And where did you get the Perilla that you all are using?
So we got ours at an Asian grocery store, but it also grows wild around the area. So last summer, we were taking a lot of walks just on trails, and we're able to find it just locally wild. They grow next to streams and little, just like streams around the area. And we were just surprised to see them there. But we know around this time, it's starting to grow. So you might be able to just find it on your walk.
Check out your local kind of foraging laws. It's very easy to just Google and see what's around, and whatever area you're hiking in and you happen to see it, just go ahead and check those that information online just to see if you're all good to go ahead and forage that.
Excellent foraging and legal tips there. Fabulous. So does the yolk serve as part of the dressing for this dish?
Essentially, yeah. You could see it as either a dressing or just, something to kind of coat your rice in and just gives the extra, like, who doesn't love a little more salt and fat in their dish, right?
Yeah, speaking of that, if we're thinking about the toppings, so do you make your crispy garlic and shallots, or is that something you purchase ready to use?
So we purchase ours, but it is also very easy to make at home. It just requires a little bit of time to like cut the garlic down to size. So you'll mince the garlic, and then you put it on very low heat in a pan full of oil, and you're essentially like frying it low and slow until it turns golden brown. And while you do that, you're just constantly moving the garlic around so it doesn't stick to one another. And then once it starts to brown, you'll get it to the point where you're happy with that color, and then strain it out and let it dry, and that's the same as what we just see right here.
But no shame in purchasing, honestly. It's like ketchup. Like, you could make homemade ketchup, but they do a great job and it's delicious. So there is no shame in going ahead and buying it for your grocery store.
So true. There are so many things that we can do to make making fun dishes easier for ourselves. Did you use for the furikake today?
Oh, you're right. I'm so sorry. I forgot about that. And lovely that it's a garnish. So yeah, go ahead and just top it. Another little added a bit of crunchiness and a little bit of nori, and you can kind of find all different kinds. So we just kind of use like the standard rice seasoning furikake. But sometimes you'll see in the store that they have like different flavored ones. So if you like spicy or if you like more seafoody things, they'll have that. So the world is your oyster.
If you needed to make this a vegetarian dish, is there something in particular you would recommend substituting in for the fish?
Yeah, so a dish that we actually use as a pantan. So pantan is like side dishes in Korea, and if you kind of go to most Korean restaurants, you'll see these little plates that we come out. Sometimes kimchi, sometimes it's like potato salad and things like that. One of the things that we do is a soy and scallion topped tofu. So you can go ahead and it's cold tofu blocks. I would get the firm or the extra firm, and you're just going to cut it down into small blocks. Kind of pat it dry because they can, they come in like soaked in water. Pat it dry, or you can just kind of leave it out on a tray with a little bit of paper towel for like a little bit. I would salt it just a touch, again, just to add a little bit of flavors because sometimes on its own it doesn't carry too much flavor. And then on the side, really simple sauce. You're just going to do a bit of sesame oil, a bit of soy, a bit of sesame seed and scallions, and just a pinch of gochugaru. And that is like a very standard Korean thing that you'll see kind of everywhere. It's very versatile. You can use it for pretty much anything. You can just mix that into the tofu and have that be a vegetarian substitute. Very easy.
That sounds delicious. Is wild sesame the same as perilla seeds?
So yes, Perilla seeds are the names are interchangeable. And yeah, so if you see Perilla seeds, that is wild sesame.
Amazing. Thanks so much. So I think that is the end of our time today. Let me switch over here. Hello again, everyone. So thank you so much to everyone for attending today's program. Thank you, Caleb and Roren, for an excellent presentation. I think it's really exciting to see how seasonal this dish can be and how it can be adjusted to what you have on hand. That's a really fun thing.